Hello everyone, welcome to the world of DePIN, where we try to explore what the buzz is all about and what's been developing in this space. Is this another hype, or it can actually bring billion users in the Web3 space? Join me as I unlock these questions with the pioneers from the Web3 space. Let's explore the world of DePIN together.
How did this idea came to you? Like, what is your reason to build something like Reclaim? Is there a personal story or a story that you want to share with us?
Say a YouTuber is making content, but does the content belong to YouTube or the creator? Because the creator is having to play by the rules of YouTube, where the monetization is defined by YouTube.
In the Web2 world, still we are sharing our data, not getting monetized ourselves, and someone else is getting monetized. Where do we see this going in terms of adoption and awareness?
If we make the users realize that the data belongs to them and not the platform, right? All the food delivery apps, all the gaming apps, all the social media platforms, the data to these platforms is provided by the user. But the little do they realize that, hey, this is my data. Like, I should have the control and power of monetizing that data.
I encountered this very recent interaction with a driver. He told me this, like, ma'am, you're paying this much amount in your app. When the ride ends, I will show you how much they showed to me. I have so many screenshots to prove there's a variance of how much you are paying to the application and how much I am making through the application, how much they're showing it to me.
The communication and messaging around privacy might not be sufficient to get to mass adoption. That's the unfortunate problem that we have.
Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of our season called World of DePIN. Today we have Harsha from Reclaim, and we're going to talk about the awareness and education about mass adoption for Web3 project. And I know Reclaim is doing a great job to help Web2 projects and Web3 projects to get more mass adoption. I'm your host Firdosh, founder and CEO of Drife. Harsha, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, thank you so much, Firdosh, for having me here. Absolutely pleasure speaking to your audience and shed some light on real world use cases.
Yeah, and we have recently done the partnership also. We made an announcement. It makes perfect sense to have you on board, just when we had the partnership announcement. I am very excited about the partnership that we are working on. But for my audience to understand what Reclaim is, what you're building, can you give a brief introduction about Reclaim?
Sure. So Reclaim is a protocol built on top of TLS layer. It's a completely open source protocol, which enables users to port their data from any website or app, even if they do not have an API, in a privacy preserving manner. So one of the use cases where we were exploring with Drife is, hey, we want to have drivers on Drive who have a reputation on Uber, say, for example, to port their reputation and credentials from Uber, Ola, or other driving apps. How do they do it now? They will probably only share screenshots because Uber does not expose any APIs. But honestly, that data belongs to the user. He or she
Correct.
should be able to share that data with you, and it's not a screenshot, right? Like anybody can morph a screenshot. So if you can share it in a verifiable manner, that would be amazing for the third party to use those credentials. That is what Reclaim enables. So I can port that. I can prove to you that this is my credentials in a selective manner. If I want to prove to you that my bank balance is more than $100,000, but actually not show you the exact bank balance, I'll be able to do
Correct.
that using Reclaim.
Correct.
Yeah.
Help me
Yeah.
understand this, Harsha. Like, how did this idea came to you? Like, what is your reason to build something like Reclaim? Is there a personal story or a story that you want to share with us?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for that question. I think there's a very specific use case which pushed us to think in this direction. So prior to Reclaim Protocol, right now, even now the product is quite active. We have built Questbook. It's an on-chain grants orchestration tool, and we disbursed close to $4 to $5 million in the last 1.5 years. And it's a grants platform for developers to come and seek grants from L1 protocols, right? And here, most of the Web3 developers are pseudonymous, so they do not actually reveal their identity, majorly because they also have their Web2 profile. Some of them are researchers at universities, which will have restrictions for taking external grant, but user wants to a developer wants to get this grants to support them, right? So we came across one of the very prime developer who was like one of the leading ecosystem members for lending protocols who wanted to prove their credentials. He is a researcher in one of the universities, and he has personally received more than $1 million in funds
Wow.
as
Wow.
grants. He's a physics scientist who is also building on lending protocols. Now, his primary concern was, hey, how do I prove my credentials to you, but at the same time not reveal who I am? So it was like a very nice problem to have. Like it's a ZK problem to be solved. And that intrigued us to think deeper in this direction on, hey, how do we prove identity of a pseudonymous individual without revealing their private information?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the story for building Reclaim protocol,
Wow.
and
Interesting.
it required consumer grade ZK proofs, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
hear about zero knowledge proofs, cryptography, but majorly it's heard in the research
Correct.
scenarios, but hardly we do not have any product which is actually being used out there. So we thought, hey, let's build a product. Just like Drife did, kudos to you. Like there are very, very, very few Web3 projects which has got actual users and delivering actual usage to the real world folks out there. And that is what even we wanted to crack. We wanted people to explore this magic of cryptography called ZK proofs. And we have built our entire protocol around it so that people can securely and privately share their information without any concerns.
Correct. Now, because this whole platform that you're building is so much around data aspect of who users are, now we have seen this becoming more relevant with time now. However, like if I talk about few years back, nobody cared about their data. I still
True,
feel that it is still among Web3 users who are now caring more about how my data has been used, who is monetizing it, and then we are building platforms. And a lot of DePIN projects are about data, where you can actually share your data and get monetized as well. However, if we look back, a decade back, or even like very recent past, even in the Web2 world, still we are sharing our data, not getting monetized ourselves, and someone else is getting
true.
monetized. Where do we see this going in terms of adoption and awareness in the first place, that people having this awareness that someone else is making money on my data and I need to get more monetized? I guess for me as a user, that's important. Like, I don't care about things till the time I am personally impacted or I know there is a monetary value behind it. But what is your take on this? Because you're working on everything which is data related, which we understand is very important and we are working towards it. But at the end of the day, we come from an ecosystem which is still very small. We are
True.
also educating, and that ecosystem is somehow educated also. But when we look at a bigger world that we want to go to, at the end of the day, we all want to have billion users. But
True.
how far we are from that idea of having mass adoption, and also with the whole ideology behind data privacy and owning my own data and being able to get monetized when I share my data.
Oh, that's a beautiful topic in itself. So, like this is my personal opinion and has been my observation over the last few years working around data. Prior to this, I also worked with creators and their audiences on building platforms for YouTubers, filmmakers, and all. I have a perspective of how they uh, claim that content to be theirs and not up to a particular platform, right? Like, say a YouTuber is making content, but does the content belong to YouTube or the creator? Because the creator is having to play by the rules of YouTube where the monetization is defined by YouTube. But now
Correct.
creator has enough distribution that they take money directly from the brands and just
Mm-hmm.
promote their brands to get revenues. Now, I think very like if when we are going and trying for this mass adoption and a billion user products, there is a very, very niche segment of audience who care about privacy.
Correct.
Uh, a close parallel would be somebody who is using a Brave browser to the number of users who are
True.
using Chrome and Apple, right? So it's though these people are like quite privacy centric, the number is low. So when we are gunning for a mass adoption, this segment might not be enough. the communication and messaging around privacy might not be sufficient to get to mass adoption. That's the unfortunate problem that we have. But what can drive us towards adoption of Web3 and user centric data is if we make the users realize that the data belongs to them and not the platform, right? All the food delivery apps, all the gaming apps, all the social media platforms, the data to these platforms is provided by the user. But the little do they realize that, hey, this is my data. Like I should have the control and power of monetizing that data. But I think this realization is the missing factor. This can only be educated through incentives and can't be pushed down their throat through privacy. They're like, okay, I don't mind my privacy being open because it's not really sensitive data. Like I'll share my, say, food Swiggy order history or a DoorDash order history with you. And if I'm not sharing my contact number, it's okay. But what they are not able to realize is that is an important information for a different entity, and you can
Mm-hmm.
directly make money out of that information. Because at the end of the day, you are putting effort. You are
Mm-hmm.
ordering this food, you are ordering this item on Amazon or Flipkart, you are taking this ride on Uber. Now, once you have this information and you do not have means to make money out of it, they are not able to realize the value. The moment they realize, hey, this data belongs to me, I should be able to control how I monetize this uh, data and provide them with tools and right incentive structures. I think that is when we'll hit a billion user product.
Correct, that's true. Another thing that I want to share and also discuss with you is on the transparency aspect. When we use ZK aspect to like verify information, there's so much about, obviously, I don't want to prove my identity, still prove something without proving who I am. I encountered this very recent interaction with a driver, and I also use different ride-hailing platforms sometime, and like some of the guys who run those companies, I know them personally, and this driver was complaining to me, and I was shocked to know that a driver care about transparency as an aspect where he told me this, and he was using the word transparency, and I was like shocked to hear
Wow.
things like this. But he told me this, like, ma'am, you're paying this much amount in your app. When the ride end, I will show you how much they show it to me. I have so many screenshots to prove there's a variance of how much you are paying to the application and how much I am making through the application, how much they're showing it to me. And because I knew the founder personally also, like I texted him like what's happening. And but the fact that they're still the dominant players are Web2 players, they're still doing things like this where the basic of transparency is not available for drive very basic of a driver who's complaining about this, that there's no transparency in place when there is this whole world which is built on now, where they're not transparent, and even like users don't even know about the privacy aspect of what's happening. I'll share this to you, and maybe we can discuss this more. Like recently Uber came up with this new privacy policy which they call it's a safety policy, where they say like you have to switch on this feature where they're listening to you when you're on a ride. And me and one
Okay.
of my colleague, we were like going through the application to see like how to switch that off. And I only saw that in Dubai. I've not used Uber in India for a very long time. I was looking at it in Dubai, and I was like, that's really insane for someone to be listening to me. And my concern is not because that they're listening to me and they might not use it. My concern is that you will be listening to me all the time. I don't trust you guys anymore. How do
True.
you look at that? What has been built in the Web2 ecosystem where everything that belongs to me is no more mine? How does
True.
we as Web3 as an industry gonna prevent that? Because I felt very scared when I saw that, as a feature, and I feel like we are among users who are well educated on those areas where we know what's happening with the data,
Privacy.
what they're collecting. And now I don't want to use that application because I don't feel safe enough about being in a ride and being listened to all the time because I don't trust them anymore. Now with
True.
ZK, how do we build trust without, being in a situation when my user is feeling scared?
Oh, that's an amazing problem statement to have in the first place. I want to answer this in two parts. Firstly, I think the motive behind any Web2 entity to come up with a feature like this or come up with an idea like this is kind of trivial, considering how their incentive mechanisms are designed, right? It's not a token-based economy. The
Correct.
way the Web2 financial institutions are built, that they have to make money, they have to make their business on top of your data. Now, your data is restricted towards whatever access you give from the app. Say probably your contact number, maybe your location while you're on the ride, and how much amount you are paying. But what is that information beyond this? Like that is where they make money, right? And a lot of Web2 institutions like Cred and all, they take access to your Gmail. It's a very smart way to take access to Gmail where, hey, I can read all your emails with respect to which coupons you're getting, how many
Correct.
bills you're paying, and then do targeted advertising to you. So data is like the new oil where
True.
now everybody wants to make money out of it. And that has been the only incentive mechanism that has been innovated. Unfortunately for Web2, there is no other route.
Correct.
Either the user has to pay for it or the user has to give their data. And it came very easy for the user that, okay, this data is okay to share, then instead of giving you my money, what they fail to realize in this process is, hey, I can make money out of this data. Because none of the institutions were, say, today there is no institution, right, which is saying like, hey, I will Google pay you, say, $10 if you prove that you have placed more than $1,000 of amount on Amazon. Nobody does that today. Instead, we say, hey, you have ordered more than $1,000 on Amazon. Here is a coupon of, say, eBay. So only Amazon is able to play this game because the data is lying with them. And user is not able to realize that, hey, this is my data. I should be able to monetize on top of this. That is number one. And that restricts a Web2 institution from being transparent. So whenever like, for example, Uber or Ola or any driving Web2 institute or riding app, it has more than one stakeholder. There is Uber or Ola, which is making money, and then there is a driver a segment, and then there is a rider segment. Now,
Correct.
they can make money as long as this stakeholder is happy with this platform's cut. And it's a subjective issue. Some of them might say, hey, 30% is okay. Some of them might say 30% is too high.
Correct.
And it does not end there, right? Look at any Google Play Store app or any app on iStore. For you to sell any digital content, you need to pay 30% of that content amount to the platform. So Apple and Google take 30% cut. Now, as a content creator, I would say, hey, it's too much of a cut. It's like paying tax in India. Why should I pay 30% while I am creating all the content?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we do not have other distribution mechanisms, so we'll have to stick to Apple or Google app stores, or the only other way is build a progressive web app. Whereas it comes to platforms like Amazon's or Flipkart's or driving apps, when there are more than one stakeholder, like the seller and the buyer or the driver and the rider, there will be that subjective difference where some of the stakeholders might be okay with the platform cut, some of the users might not be okay with the platform cut. Uh, Good that now that we have competition to apps like Ola, Uber, like people like you who are building more transparent revenue models, more transparent economic systems, where all the stakeholders are happy with the way people are getting incentivized,
Correct.
right? It's an unfortunate way of keeping not keeping things transparent and they taking a cut out of it. The ideal way should have been making it transparent, but it does not make the logistics work for them. So they had to force that lack of transparency and keeping it opaque and making sure this stakeholder does not get access to data on the other stakeholder, right? That is
Correct.
one part of the answer which I wanted to address more on stakeholder incentivization ecosystem. No, sorry, mechanism. Whereas it comes to zero knowledge proofs, I think for like there is merit in the technology in itself, zero knowledge proofs, where because hey, user can be rest assured that their data is not being leaked and they only share that information which is relevant for them to monetize their data. Now that is a beautiful concept in itself. It's like almost seems like magic that hey, I'm proving to you something, but I'm not showing you that something.
Correct.
That seems like counterintuitive to us, but the technology exists. Now we have uh, like Reclaim Protocol, there is TLS Notary, there are a few others who are trying to bring it to actual users. And the way we built this ecosystem is also quite difficult, right? It's very difficult to educate that, hey, we are not taking access to your data, right? At the end of the day, we have to educate the audience, no matter we say that we are an open source protocol, no matter how much we say we are audited by code. For mass adoption, the way to go about it is still incentive mechanism, unfortunately. Though we constantly educate them, like even look at the WhatsApp messages right now. Whenever people want to have financial conversations, they ring up on WhatsApp just because it says messages are
Encrypted,
end-to-end
sorry,
and
encrypted.
encrypted. So though they do not actually understand, hey, how is it being encrypted? Like, do they
Correct.
have the decryption keys? Will they be able to access those keys and give it to, say, a third party? No. It seems encrypted, better than a normal phone call. Eventually, they started using it. So it's more about how do we educate them, like step by step. It starts off with an incentive mechanism and slowly keep educating them on smaller terms. I'm not very confident at the end of the day we'll be able to do a whiteboarding session with users about ZK proofs, but I'm very confident that once there is real usage, like for example, let's pick Uber, right? Initially, the users could have had concerns of safety of the rider,
Correct.
but now after say more than a million rides, now people are like, okay, if everybody is taking a ride, probably it's safe.
True.
So it's a peer influenced stability and reliability that gets induced to other users. I think that's the only way forward when we are looking at a billion user product.
Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. Now let's talk about, I was going through the website and you guys speak about the data on Uber and that can be used. And I guess we are also working on something similar where we say like, okay, we want to get a proof from beta rider or driver about how many rides they have done, get a
Yeah.
reputation out of it, and also incentivize initial user. So when we are going to a new place or new city, we have this as an incentive mechanism where you prove us how many rides you have done with an Uber application, and based on that, like 20, 50, 100, we give you certain discount. Sounds very interesting as a mechanism to start with to get those users on board. I want to understand how you guys do that. How I, as an application where we at Drive integrate Reclaim protocol and ask users to prove how many rides they have done with Uber, just for a general understanding for people, like how this is working and how difficult of a task it is for me as a user when I'm doing it, or is it a seamless process?
Sure. I'd love to explain how, firstly, how Reclaim protocol works in a very simple terms, and then I'll run you through like how what would the user have to do to prove their information. So the way Reclaim works, or the way internet works today is, hey, whenever I have a device, say a mobile device, and I'm booking my Uber, and I enter my details here, and the data is fetched from Uber website. So the entire data of my profile is lying on a web server on Uber. So all this information is traveling between the client and the server. And this is
Correct.
happening on a network layer called TLS protocol, right? Now, whatever this information is being passed between a server and the client is happening in an encrypted manner so that no hacker will be able to fetch this information and decrypt it for themselves. What we do is we install a witness on the client. So what we have is an SDK solution where if you have a mobile native app, you get to install it on your mobile. Like it's integrated inside your app. Say, for example, let's take Drive example, right? If Drive is a mobile app, you'll see a verify button
Mm-hmm.
on the Drive app. It says, hey, you can use Drive with, say, you get 50% discount if you have taken more than 100 rides on Uber. Verify that you have proved more than you have taken more than 100 rides on Uber. Now, the moment the user clicks it, there is a data transfer. Like if I'm logging into Uber, there is a typical data transfer between client device and the server. This data is attested by a witness saying
Mm-hmm.
that yes, this data is indeed coming from uber.com and say not fake uber.com. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that is step number one. The step number two is there is a ZK circuit, a zero knowledge proof circuit, which is a combination of 20,000 plus and NOR gates, which lies on the client device that takes the input of decryption keys of the user. So the magic that happens in ZK circuit is whatever input is being taken, you won't get to look into the data. So though the decryption key of the user and uh, and the attestations of the transcript from reclaim witness is happening on the client device, it is not possible for Reclaim or Drive, either of us, to access this data. So
Mm-hmm.
data is always lying with the user.
Mm-hmm.
It is not even technically possible for either of us to access this data. Now, user will selectively reveal, right? Because as a user, I have my contact number, my uh, pickup address, destination address, number of rides,
Correct.
my ratings, and all right. But I want to prove to you that only that my number of rides are more than 100 and nothing else. So
Mm-hmm.
in this ZK circuit, we redact every other information, and only that specific data is proven to the third party, which is in this case Drive, right? So from the user perspective, it is very simple. I click on verify my rights. It takes me to my actual Uber login page where
Okay.
I enter my phone number and OTP, which is like regular login for Uber. It is This is very different from web scraping. So we are not scraping any data here. You are
So
actually
you're not
logging into Uber.
redirecting me to the Uber app. You're taking me to Uber website. So if
That's
I
true.
have an Uber application and a Drive application and I say like, yes, I want to verify I've done 100 plus, right? You will not redirect me to the app. You will redirect me to a web address, which is a Uber
Uber.
login, Uber web
Yes.
login that I do. Okay.
And all I have to do is just log in and nothing else. You don't have to tap on anything. You just give and log in into your Uber website. And the
Mm-hmm.
ZK circuit runs on the data packets of data which is coming from the Uber server to the client and decrypts only that part of the information which the user wants to prove, which in this
Mm-hmm.
case is number of rides. And only that is being fetched and given to Drive, which is saying that, hey, the number of rides of this user is greater than 100 tick mark. Is it? No, it's say 45. It doesn't verify.
Doesn't
So
verify.
that's how it is being done. And the best part is, though the user is entering their credentials, the credentials are never shared. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
not technically possible to for Drive or Reclaim to access these credentials. The credentials lie with the user because they're actually logging into their Uber's website. The witness attests only on the encrypted data. It does not decrypt and look into the data.
Nice,
That's how
nice.
the tech works.
Very interesting. I'm so excited about this integration for us in the first place. Like, when we do that and we can get a lot of active users from different platforms and nodes and run a lot of different
Absolutely.
things around that, like campaigns that you want to run. It's a very
Yeah, today I
interesting.
think there was a conversation on the group around how we
Yes,
could do content on how we can do campaigns with Drive by saying,
correct.
hey, travel to this place and generate a proof and take some giveaways and incentive.
Correct, correct, correct.
And
That's very interesting, and I'm sure that when we make that feature live, a lot of people will also interact with the Web3 aspect of who we are, and will be
true.
interesting for users as well. So, yeah, thank you so much for building this in the first place and working on integration with us as well.
Hey, glad that clients like Drive are using Reclaim. Like, because see, honestly, at the end of the day, it's been a long pending dream that, hey, we are building all this cool technology of Web3, decentralization of users' data, and incentivize users for their own data, building zero knowledge proofs and more cryptographic hash functions. All this is very theoretical, but where exactly are we landing up? Like, do we see our mother, our kids, our
True,
parents, our
true.
siblings, our friends actually using what we are building? I think very few projects have taken it to that level where actual users are there, and I'm very glad that Drive has taken that leap and now going into real world usage. So the reason why we built is also to ensure that real world products use the cool technology
That's
that's
true,
lying
that's
out there.
true. Like at the end of the day, I guess all that matters is are people able to use that we are building directly or indirectly? Because at the end of the day, anything that you see is been built in this world has a consumer aspect to it directly or
True.
indirectly. And I kept thinking this for a very long time, like the crypto space, the Web3 space is only building for crypto users. And if we keep doing that, where we gonna land and we'll keep talking just about the adoption and we'll never achieve that. And sometimes I feel like, we might have understood this all wrong. It was the purpose of all of this just build cryptocurrencies. And I know
True.
certainly no, the answer is not no. And
Crypto
it's
is
it's
not cryptocurrency.
exactly. It is so interesting to see a lot of new projects building and building for real world users and where a user can interact without even knowing the Web3 aspect of the business. Like a lot of time I meet the people from I always differentiate between a Web3 audience and crypto audience. I think
And
they are different audience. They are
yeah,
different
yeah, they
audience.
are.
I know this interaction once I had, and in Bangalore, we were part of this one event, and people were able to do the rides, and the guy came to me, the crypto OG guy, and he's like, "Can I pay in crypto?" I was like, "No, you can't pay in crypto," and I told him like, "Why?" Because there's a driver whose livelihood is dependent and I
Dependent.
cannot pay him in like cryptocurrency. And he's like, okay, then you're not Web3. I was like, yeah, sure, I am not.
Ah,
So
yeah.
that's what keep happening with me. And I was like, yeah, sure, I am not. I'm sorry I said that.
True. I
But
think that difference still exists where like there is that misconception still flying around with where people think crypto is just cryptocurrency and they don't
correct,
look beyond cryptocurrency to look at how brilliant this technology is, what all it unlocks, how does it
exactly.
make the user own their own data and get incentivized. I think it's a learning still to be induced into the wider audience.
True, that's true. And that's where we have to like keep building more on
Absolutely.
the Web3 side and build product that matters.
I
The
think there's
last
no better
question.
way of I think there's no better way of educating than building a viral product.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like, and then eventually people realize, oh, there's a Web3 aspect to it, but it's a real world project. So yeah,
True.
we'll keep working on that. I have this one last question, and I keep asking this to founder. I see very rarely Web3 founders been asked this question, and I feel about this question when I'll come to the question is about the how as a Web3 founder you deal with how fast paced is the Web3 industry and how fast it is changing because you sleep with something that's been a hype today and wake up with something new.
Very
I think
new.
it adds a lot of pressure to you also as a founder where people expect you to also be that fast paced to adopt to that. Okay, today something is a new hype. Why don't you also have that in your application? Too difficult to understand the community that guys it takes time to build things and I cannot
True.
just do it because there's a hype about it. There's so much stress that comes along with a web being a web3 founder. It's very different from a web2 founder because they work on this
Absolutely.
cycle. They have a timeline, they have to achieve something, they want to work on that. Web3 founders don't work that way. We need to make sure that we match up to the how fast paced this industry is also, but also make sure that we are also working on the timeline and our own product roadmap. It adds a lot of stress. Harsha, for you, how do you deal with that stress or you're just ignoring it?
Very tough question. See, what happens, I think this problem would not have existed if you're say a solo founder or if you're a very small team of like two, three people.
Correct.
But the moment you expand your team and especially like Reclaim has four co-founders. So when there are
Wow.
like multiple founders and the team is now around 25, so it gets very difficult to build in the conviction amongst everyone. That's
Correct.
the honest reality. Because, hey, each founder might be excited with a different aspect of what's happening in the industry. And this is very specific to Web3 that always interesting, always happens every day and every night, right? So as
Correct.
you rightly said, I mean, be excited for something else. By the morning, I'll be excited with something else. So how do we I think the way I personally deal with this is I go back to the roots. Go back to the roots of, hey, what am I building? Hey, who are the audience that I'm trying to solve this for? And is there an existing problem that is being solved? And am I caring enough for this problem? The moment I have conviction on this might actually vary from every founder. In fact, it might even vary between our four co-founders as well. But it's very personal to me. The way I deal with this aspect, it's a very important aspect, is that I get clarity on whom am I solving this for, and how big is this problem, like how big is this problem is not the right statement. Probably, how am I able to relate to this problem? Do I care enough for this problem? I treat my work as proof of care. That hey, like I'm proving to you that I care enough for this problem, so I'm building a product for this. There will be a lot of spikes. There will be a lot of new things coming into this ecosystem, which is taking your bandwidth, grabbing your attention. But if you are sticking to your roots of that problem that you're trying to solve, I think there is common alignment. All these spikes will only probably make a slight changes in the direction, but it won't change a significant, like whatever we have built, right? When we started out building Questbook, it was like a very simple tool. Like, to be honest, even today, I think it's a very simple tool. A protocol comes there, puts their funds, a developer comes there, applies for a proposal and takes money. I think this can be a weekend project. Any hackathon developer would be able to build this. So it was like a very simple problem or simple product. What I cared about the most was, hey, I have to ensure that all the developers who are actually building and are not able to build because of funds, that is a problem that I wanted to solve. That is where I wanted, hey, let the developers just come here, submit their work, prove their work, and take money and build on it. So the problem statement has been constant for 1.5 years. So the product, though it's very simple and a lot of magic was happening in Web3, we just stuck to that simple tool, and now it's like cash flow positive with $5 million being disbursed. It's doing great. It has around 30,000 monthly active users. When I started this, we thought, okay, it's a very simple product. Probably let's see how it goes. So yeah, if we stick to the roots and the problem statement, I think there won't be much of stress. You might be excited for a few things, but you'll not directionally change. That said, in Web3, you will never be able to give a 6-month roadmap. Right? When the team comes to you and say, "Hey, what is the plan for the next 6 months?" Dude, I can't tell how the industry is going to look 2 months from now. So
Correct,
it's very
correct.
difficult.
That's true. That's true. Thank you so much, Harsha, for joining me today. It was so nice to talk to you and understand your perspective on things that you're building and otherwise what's been built. Thank you so much for coming and
Hey,
joining us
thank
for
you so
today's
much for having me
conversation.
here for this. Thank you so much for having me here for this. I think very insightful. I had fun having this conversation. Uh, Great concepts that we discussed and great ideologies that are floating around were brought
Thank
into
you.
this conversation. Thanks for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and have an understanding that DePIN is not just another buzzword. See you in the next episode. Till then, keep exploring the world of DePIN.